Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be sharing this video with you today. So, what's up next? Ever since I started sharing some of the behind the scenes videos, I've had a lot of requests come in to showcase even more situations that are behind the scenes, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today is one of those behind the scenes videos specifically on how to set up a prototype test. Now, I'm going to be using Optimal for this particular test, which I love Optimal. I actually started using Optimal, I want to say back in 2015. 2015, 2016, here about there. And it was a tool that I absolutely loved using and have been able to use it off and on ever since then. So I will be showcasing my prototype setup in Optimal specifically. I highly recommend, if you haven't tried it, try out Optimal. They have a whole range of tools within Optimal Workshop in general. And yeah, I'm just super psyched to be able to use this particular tool to show you how I set up a prototype. Now, we're going to get into the weeds because prototyping is a super common method. We use it all the time. We test prototypes so often. We need to do it quickly and we need to do it effectively. Now, the thing is when we start doing things more quickly or when we get an influx of requests for prototype testing, sometimes things can go a bit sideways. And we get comfortable with these kinds of methodologies that, again, sometimes we can not end up thinking as much about the prototype test, the goals, the tasks, the point of them in the first place. And this can cause our results to get a bit skewed and maybe not be the best results for our stakeholders. So this is kind of the same vibe, I feel like, as surveys. Like, surveys are used so often, but not always properly thought through. So I am going to showcase today how I really think through setting up a prototype in the best way possible. And I'm going to be using this particular guide that I created. This guide will be linked in the show notes as a template so that you can use it to help you facilitate setting up prototypes in the future. And it goes through making sure prototyping is the best method, crafting goals, recruiting participants, success metrics, and then finally writing tasks. Because the thing is, again, with prototypes, we can kind of get caught up in doing them so often that we're not maybe thinking as much as we should be about the different goals, about whether a usability test is the right approach for this, about our tasks and making sure we're writing the best tasks that we can for the test and for what the stakeholders need. So we're going to really dive in, and you'll see my entire thought process as I go to set up this particular prototype test. So let's get started. I'm really, really excited. So I'm going to create a study right in here. So you'll see this study name that you can put in, the study type. I'm going to put in a prototype test. It's just a default project, and I'm going to use a Figma link. So you can either use this Figma link or you can use images and actually put them into a clickable prototype. I personally recommend trying to use a Figma link if you can, because it's just easier, and they're usually higher fidelity. So if you can, if it's possible, try to use a Figma link in this. So, but I would say images is still viable. Easier Figma link. So we're going to create the study, And now we are already going to get into the details. So as you can see here, we've landed on this next, let me actually see if I can, yeah, there we go. We've landed on this next page here, which asks us for some study details. Now, I love to put in the details within the study, especially because I find that people will come back and look at this stuff. And the more times that I can expose people to things like goals and success metrics and reasons behind doing things, the better, even if it is like subconscious that they're reading the different details, right? So this is super important for me, and I would never tend to skip this, even if I'm just copying and pasting something from a research plan. Any opportunity that I get to showcase this information and again try and educate people on why we might have done this test, what the goals were, what the success criteria is, I'm going to take it. So if we see here, we have the study details, the purpose, and the participant requirements. So let's first start with the purpose. So before we even get started on thinking through the actual goals for this, I want to think about, is a prototype test the right method? Because oftentimes it's not. And we think it might be. So I've written down the things that a prototype test can answer, what it cannot answer, and then a decision tool. So the thing that I see get most messed up, I guess for lack of a better way to say it, when it comes to prototyping, is that the prototype is not a high enough fidelity. So if you want to actually see, especially in an unmoderated setting, if you want to actually see if people can properly navigate and complete tasks via your prototype, you need a fairly high fidelity prototype for this. And what I mean by high fidelity is something that looks live and gives people the opportunity to get lost. Because a lot of times when we're doing lower fidelity prototypes, and we're creating them, whether it be in Figma or anywhere else, we're not actually creating the unhappy paths because they're not created, the designs aren't there yet. But for unmoderated prototype testing, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that your prototype is high enough fidelity and gives people the opportunity to mess up, because you want to see that. That is real life, right? You want to be able to see if they fail the task. You have to give them a way to fail the task. Because if there's only like one thing that they can click, that's the right thing, that might not tell you what you actually need. So really looking at making sure you have a high enough fidelity. If you don't, go to maybe some moderated testing, go to some concept testing potentially. Just try not to use too low fidelity, like static screens or low fidelity wireframes for unmoderated prototype testing. And then what I would also say is that we want to use prototype testing for observing what people do, not when you need to ask why or what they might need, what they might feel, and like dig really deep, because we're not going to get that. We need to understand what people are doing, the tasks that they are doing, and how and if they are able to do those tasks, rather than more abstract, digging deeper, understanding the why behind things, especially when it comes to unmoderated. So you see here the two examples that I have. I tried to do B2C and B2B examples, and then write your research question and then ask yourself, would watching someone use a clickable version of the product help me answer whatever question I have? So I'm using this as my prototype. It's a copy of Airbnb mobile app. So you'll see here, this is a listing, and I am looking to understand if somebody can click through, get more details on the listing, understand what this listing has, a little bit more about the space and access. I want them to know about the amenities, for instance, that are available. And I also want them to go through and understand if they can find out the reviews, specifically location, and then also for cleanliness, because those are important things for the user to understand when they have landed on a listing. So that's what I'm looking for. Watching somebody try to do those tasks would be very helpful. This is a relatively high fidelity prototype here. There are multiple places for people to click. And so I feel comfortable trying to understand, can people find these details? Having people click through this would be very helpful for me. So first things first, we understand here, yes, this makes sense. I did say alternatives if prototype testing might not be for you, or sorry, usability testing might not be for you. So let's go on to goals. So goals give clarity, goals give direction, goals give everything. It helps us understand what we are trying to test and achieve and what decision we're trying to move. And that's everything when it comes to user research. So the most common mistakes that I see when it comes to goals are things that are too vague or no specific outcome or behavior that we're looking for, or something that's not measurable. And we're going to get to success metrics in just a second. So I've given a formula here that you can use. Well, two different formulas that you can use. The first one being we're testing this feature or flow to understand this behavior or outcome so that we can make this decision or action. Or we want to uncover a problem in an experience, decide whether to do something. So you'll see here, those are the two main goals. I have some tiered goal writing, so the different tiers, basic, intermediate, advanced, and a goal writing worksheet. So the flow in the page, the behavior you're looking to observe, why it matters, and then the team decision if you really want to map this out when you think about these things. So with this particular app here, I had mentioned that I am interested in understanding how people navigate a listing to find the information that they need so that we can make any improvements in the listing page. So I'm just going to bring this over here, and I would write here, goal, and then there. We're testing the listing page to understand how people navigate and find listing information so we can make necessary improvements to the missing information or features. I could also probably go the problem route. So we want to uncover any problems within the listing page so that we can fix the problems. That's something that's possible, but that feels a little bit too vague for this. Usually this is like more pointed. So here's an example. We want to uncover points of hesitation in setting up a team dashboard to decide whether onboarding needs to include a pre-built template. This is hyper specific, while these are a little bit more broad. So it's up to you to decide, like, are you just looking like I am with this kind of entire flow, this kind of entire feature, looking for certain behavior and outcomes so that you can like make any decisions? Are you looking for something a little bit more specific, like a specific problem or maybe a specific point that they get stuck on? So really write your goals. You can have multiple goals if you want to. So if I was testing like the entire app on Airbnb, I might have several goals, each citing a different flow or feature, or I might have several goals, one of them being like the overarching goal of like, can somebody, essentially we're testing from searching to booking to see if people are able to book a stay so that we can improve the entire flow. And then I might have a few like sub goals underneath where there might be like certain areas that we want to explore more in depth, such as like profiles or payment. So uncovering any problems with payment, so that we can decide whether or not to, include certain credit card information, right? So we have that broader goal, and we might have some subsets that are a little bit more specific. So now we're looking at recruiting participants. I'm going to skip this really quickly, and I promise we will go back because I want to define success metrics first. So I want to do this part of the study details first. So I am now going to go down to success metrics. Now, success metrics are so important, and we often skip them, especially if we're doing stuff too quickly or very quickly. There are several different ways that you can look at success metrics. They don't always have to be about like conversion rate and all of these different things. There are many different facets to success metrics. So success metrics help us understand if and how the research succeeded. So at the end, we can say this research was successful, and this all ties back to things that you put in your resume and your case studies for promotion, for pay rises, right? So we'll look at first study success categories. So we have insight discovery, so identified 5 friction points, behavioral patterns, so workflows users default to, impact on decision making, and then team engagement. So these are all great. And I recommend, looking into these because these showcase how successful the study was. And then you can look into things like success metrics for the product. This could be UX metrics. So task success, error rate, number of errors, time on task. Those are all very common metrics that are wonderful to look at. We can look at behavioral metrics. So the percentage of people who find features correctly, percentage of people who abandon tasks. And then we have more of like the business-based metrics that are directly related to the product. So increasing booking rates by 3%, decreasing support tickets. So these are all fantastic ways of looking at success metrics for the product in particular. And you'll see here that there are plenty of examples that could help you with determining which ones. For this particular project, since we're looking at a prototype, I probably wouldn't go too much into, well, I might go into product, but first I'm going to go into study success categories. So I want to be able to identify 3 pain points that occur within the listing page. I might say 2 or 3 because it's like a smaller page. So identify 2 to 3 major pain points on the listing page. Great. And then we have here as well, I'm less concerned about workflows, team engagement particularly maybe, but I would like to inform, at least one positive change on the listing page for the product roadmap. And then I might go, we're not going to do like task completion. We're not going to do time on task for this. I might want to see the percentage of people who abandon the task. So that might be a little bit too difficult to do that right now. I actually want to increase the booking conversion rate. So I'm going to say that as well. Because I would assume, because we're identifying the major pain points, we're informing at least one positive change. I'm going to say 2 because we're identifying, 2 pain points, 2 positive changes, increase booking conversion, by 5%. So if we have the right information on the listing page, if we've identified those major pain points and changed them, then our booking conversion should go up. So we can say at the end of the test, we have done these things. And booking conversion, we're going to have to wait and see, right? That's a lagging indicator, which means we're going to have to wait and see later, but still important to call it out. And now let's go to participant recruitment. Here we go. This is a great formula to use. We don't want to skip out on participant recruitment details because they are so important. We need to see people who have relevant behavior within a specific context related to the product area. So if I'm recruiting people who have never traveled before, that's not going to be helpful. I need people who are interested in traveling or people who have traveled recently, right? I would probably ask somebody, I don't know if I'd have an Airbnb user or not. I don't think that matters as much, but it is all about really understanding like participants who have, gone on a holiday recently, so that we can get somebody who would be relevant for this study. Because if we're trying to recruit people who are like just not interested in travel, it's not going to be very helpful. So also really quickly on sample size, we see this here, this guidance. So moderated 5, unmoderated, it's ideal to have like over 15. So I would say we need 15 participants within the following categories. And then we're going to say that their location is actually, we're going to say America because localization, we're in dollars. We're also going to say have traveled with a friend in the past, let's say 3 months. I also want them like to have used travel tools such as booking.com, Expedia, in the past 3 months as well, because then we have like a interesting comparison point potentially. Yeah, so there we go. So here we are with our goal, with our success metrics, with our 15 participants and the following categories that we need them to be great at. So let's head over to this. I'm going to set this up. I'm going to pause because it can take just 1 second. And just really quickly, because I wanted to show you what I did. I went in, I shared the prototype link so anybody can see this. And I just popped it on into here and pressed import. And now it's just loading the prototype. So I'm going to pause while I do that. Cool. So we have our Figma prototype in here. As you can see, it's even clickable within here. So you can see everything that you can and cannot do. So that's fantastic. You can put a password on it, which I really appreciate. You can resync it if your designer has made changes. You can change the prototype completely. So super duper easy. Really, really appreciate that. So now let's quickly go to our tasks. So here we have our different tasks, and we have these options. So allowing participants to skip tasks, clickable area flashing, task ends automatically, randomizing task order, don't randomize the first task, and then show each participant all tasks. So what I would do is I'm going to take away clickable area flashing and I'm going to take away randomized task order because I want these tasks to go in a linear way. I will allow participants to skip tasks because I think it is interesting when they do. So we have here our starting screen. So we have our listing details and now we have to write our task. So if we go into how to write a task, there's a lot of information here. And I recommend you read it at your leisure. But usually I break these into a user goal, so the end goal for the participant, and the task scenario, which is what we share. So if the user goal is to find a restaurant to eat at, the task scenario might be find a pizza restaurant in the West Village to book for this date at 6 p.m. for 2 people, right? So there is a lot of information here on how you can write tasks and some information on how you can do that, as well as another formula. So that's the action plus the verb plus context plus the goal plus the constraints if they're optional, and the endpoint. So here we go with another example using that. So I'm going to break this down because I want specific tasks. Not all of your tasks have to be the whole thing in this giant task scenario. You can make them a bit smaller, but I am going to make the first task, a bit more like a task scenario. So imagine you are traveling with your friend to, I think it's Paris. I don't know where Cambron is. Guess who is American? Okay, yes. Okay, so we're not quite in Paris, but we're traveling with your friend to France in about 3 months. Your friend just sent you an interesting Airbnb to look at, right? So we have that. We have like the context here, which is what I always like to put in to the first task. So we have this, and then we would ask them. So we have several things that they can do here, right? They can look at the photos. They can get more information on the actual room and the space. They can get the amenities, and they can look at the reviews. So we're going to break those up into those different tasks. And now say, you want to check out more pictures of that space. And you can prompt people. I especially do this on unmoderated tests. So how would you do that? And that's our first task right here. So what's cool about this is we can like add a correct answer, or you can if somebody takes a specific pathway or reaches a specific destination, which is really interesting, or you'll see, and I'll show you this, they will go into it and they can click that they've completed the task. Another thing that's interesting here that I really, really like is post-task questions. So things like the single ease questionnaire, asking how easy or difficult it was to complete a task. That's something that you can put here, which is so fantastic because especially with unmoderated testing, it can help with getting even more data on how easy or difficult somebody found it, because it's also really interesting because self-reported data versus what you are seeing, they can give you a whole picture of what happened. You can also say in this task, you can remind people to think out loud during the study if that's something that you want to do. So we're going to add another task, and we're going to say you are interested in learning even more information about the space. I just want to make sure space is in here. Yeah. And then you can say, you can prompt them again. How would you find this information? Right? And then we can go in here and we can add, reach a specific, I don't know if they're going to have me do. Oh yeah. Let's set this as the correct destination, right? And we can also select this as the correct destination for that. And then we can also say, you need to know whether or not to bring a hairdryer, it's a thing, on your trip. How would you find this? And again, gosh, I am just, there we go. And then finally, what I'm going to do is you want to read more ratings specifically about the location of the Airbnb. How would you do this? And then we have our correct area here. Great. And then what I could do for this one, since this is the last task, what I could do is say, I don't want the net promoter score. No. I will take a radio button. How easy or difficult was it to find more information on the ratings for the Airbnb? And then we have very easy, either easy or difficult, very difficult. We can make this optional as well. Done. And so another thing that you could do is, if you wanted to, you could also do like the UMux or the UMux Lite here, because the UMux and the UMux Lite are both post-test questions. And if this is your last task, that would be the end of the test. So that's something else that you can do. So let's go ahead and check out so these are the tasks that we have. Let's go out and check out our study flow. So we have a welcome to the session. I'm a really friendly researcher, so welcome to this. I tend not to call things tests when they're participant facing. So welcome to this prototype session, and thank you for agreeing to participate. Yeah, for 10 to 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes to be honest for this one. Your response will help us evaluate our user experience, right? So find out how on the next page. Yeah. Cool. Another thing that I love here is you can have like a participant agreement here, which is fantastic. This is where you can throw in your screener questions. And those are the ones that we had said before. So for instance here, we can say, when was the last time you booked we're going to talk about leisure trip, leisure holiday, let's say. And then we have things like less than a month ago. And then we have 1 to 2 months ago, 3 to 4, 3 to 4 months ago. But I don't want that. I'm going to say 2 to 3 months ago. And then we're going to say over 3 months ago. And then that would be, this would go next, or go to study, whichever one. And this would go to reject. And we can even say, thank you for your time. We're focusing this study on particular issues, and on this occasion you do not. Yeah. Cool. Easy. Nice. This is also great too. So we could fill out our screener questions in there. Participant identifier, anonymous, pre-study questions. So this is really great. This could give you a little bit more information, potentially demographic based if you need anything. Then we have the instructions. Oh, we have post-study questions in here. So this is where you could actually put in your UMux Lite, or you can do the SUS if that's something that you're interested in, to get you all of this information. And then we have instructions for the session. Here's how it works. You will be presented with an interactive prototype and a task to complete. Navigate through the prototype until you believe you have completed the task. Great. The task, once complete, depending on the type of task, select the button or the task will finish automatically. This is not a test of your ability. Yep. That's it. Let's get started. In here too, what you could probably say is like, please think out loud as you're going through this, because it helps us understand, your thoughts as you run through the prototype. But that's up to you. And then we have the prototype test. We have our post-study questions. So if we wanted UMUX Lite, we could also potentially set up like confidence as well. And then we have the thank you so much message. So all done. Awesome. That's cute. Thanks again for your participation. Your feedback is incredibly useful. You may close this window. If there's any sort of like incentive on top of what they might be getting, this is where you could put it. And yeah, you could absolutely redirect them somewhere. And then this is great. Sorry, this study is closed. The session has been closed. It's no longer to complete the study. We will let you know whenever we have more studies available. Thank you. I'm overly polite. Cool. Then we have settings. So we have our URL slug. So we could be travel app, which is great. Video recording. This is something that I would do. So camera recording, I would say optional. Audio recording, I would say optional as well, because we're not making them think out loud. I would say this would be required. And then if the above because I want to see their screen, that's to me very, very important. So if the above conditions cannot be met, I would prevent the participant from entering the study. And we have password control, which is amazing. And then we can close either with a date, a participant limit, which I always love, or both, a date and a limit, which is fantastic. So then we have the design. So if we have like any sort of logo that we want to input, so if we were working for Airbnb, we could drop the logo here, or any sort of social media image, any coloring that we wanted to do. I don't actually know what Airbnb's colors are. Pink, red. Yeah, that like weird guy, that weird pink or red color. I'm sorry, I'm so terrible at colors. Continue, that's fine. So we can save this and then we can preview it, which is so exciting. I love this. So we have welcome to the session. Here we go. We can go in 2 to 3 months ago. We're going to the study. We have our instructions here, which is fantastic. As I said, you could put in here, think out loud. And then we have our task. So imagine you're traveling with your friend to France in about 3 months. Your friend just sent you an interesting Airbnb to look at. You want to check out more pictures of that space. How would you do that? They then start the task, click the picture. Fantastic. We're there. Amazing. Complete task. I mean, talk about making life easier for researchers. Same thing here. They can go ahead and start the task. They're there. We've completed it. They're reading all of the wonderful information and they have completed the task. So we have set up a really successful prototype, I think. I think it's pretty awesome. We see that we don't need a hairdryer. That's pretty awesome too. And so this just makes it really easy for people to understand, okay, like here are all of the things that we need to do. It's really easy, specifically like here is the step-by-step. I want to do all of this. I've made it here and I've completed the task. And now how easy or difficult was it to find more information on the ratings for the Airbnb? Easy. We've have a rogue question, which I would then need to figure out. And this is why we test things, right? This is why we test things. So I have set up an extra fun, like question at some point, which I will need to, oh, I know what I did. There we go. That's why we test things. And now we're fixed. So yeah, and then what I would do is I would go on and recruit. I already included some screener questions, which is fantastic. Optimal has managed recruitment where the experts will do it for you. They also have an on-demand panel. It's a global panel, which I really appreciate, which is awesome. And then we have this amazing results page where you can already start to see some of the results that come in. And I love this because not only does it allow you to see things, you know, as they're coming in, which is like super exciting and so good for drip feeding to stakeholders, but it puts things in a really, really pretty view that makes it so easy to share with stakeholders. So I hope that this was helpful for you in terms of like walking you through behind the scenes of how I really plan something like this, how I make sure that a prototype, a usability test is the right way to go, how I think about the goals, how I think about the success metrics, how I think about writing a task, and how I really like go about setting this whole thing up. And I think that tools like this are especially relevant. So when I was starting out as a researcher and for a few years, I didn't have any tools like this. And the problem is now everything is going so fast. AI is making things go so fast. People can design things in like literally 2 seconds. And we need to be able to keep up with AI, the design world. We need to keep up with how fast products are getting shipped. And something like this, I mean, like, look at this, like on-demand panel, see results within 1 hour to 3 days. That's incredible. Like, imagine being able to do that. That's something that I could not have imagined back when I was starting out as a researcher. And that's one of the reasons why I had gone with Optimal way back when, 9 years ago, is because I could move faster with my team. Less stuff was getting left behind. I was getting involved more because I was getting things faster to my team. So all in all, like, it's so super helpful. I recommend trying it out. If you have any questions on this particular video, pop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. As I said, I will also put this guide in for you so that you have this available so that you are ready to go for your next prototype test and making it as successful as humanly possible. Also, what I will say is make sure that you align with all of the goals and stuff with your stakeholders. That will help you quite a lot. Same with the success metrics, because then you can say, look at all this amazing stuff that I did that we agreed on. Here it is. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give Optimal a try. I've always loved them, huge fan of them. So yeah, as I said, give them a try. Let me know how it is. Post any comments below, and I look forward to the next video. Thanks.